Hello, today I'd like to show you how to use a Windows recovery environment to copy files to a network share. This could become useful when a server is not booting to an operating system and quick access to the data is needed, perhaps to make it available on a backup server. Now, copying this data to a USB key or an external hard drive is mostly easier, but sometimes this drive is not large enough to fit all the files that need recovery, or simply there's no easy way to connect such a device to the unbootable server. In such a scenario, copying the data to a network share may be the most efficient way of getting these files backed up. You can also use this technique to test functionality of your network cards outside of the operating system when troubleshooting a networking driver or a software issue. In this video, we will be using the Windows Preboot Environment Initialization Tool, or WPE Init, although another tool named WPE Util works the same, the driver load utility to work with drivers, and finally the netshell tool to accomplish this task. As far as requirements, of course we will need access to the BIOS console of the unbootable server, we will need credentials to the network share to which we want to copy the files, and depending on the network card of the server, we may need the INF driver files. Now, here we're connected to a Dell PowerEdge server over its iDRAC remote access card. We are already in the Windows recovery environment. Now, there are several ways to enter WinRE, but since this technique is to be used in an unbootable server, here I have booted to a Windows installation DVD image using the virtual media, and instead of choosing install, I click repair. You can also enter WinRE by booting to a physical DVD, or depending on the damage of the unbootable server, the computer may automatically enter WinRE if the 2 or 3 previous attempts to boot Windows normally have failed. In any case, when presented with this menu, click the Troubleshoot button and then the command prompt. First, I will type and open Notepad to see if I can browse the file system and locate the files that I need to recover. You can see here that the unbootable server drive letter for the operating system is C. Within C, there's a folder named SQL Databases. And if I make this change here, you'll see that I have a pair of database files. These are the files that we will be transferring to the backup server. If I go back to the command line and type ipconfig, you'll notice that it returns no information. This is because WinRE does not automatically enable the TCP/IP stack. Here is where you will need to enter WPE init to run this tool to get it to work. As I mentioned earlier, another tool that works the same is WPE Util. Whichever tool you select, just type it in here and hit enter. After a brief delay, if you type ipconfig and hit enter again, you should see more information. If you still don't see anything, it means that WinRE does not have the drivers for your network card. WinRE includes a basic set of drivers for many popular network adapters, but if your network card is not detected by WinRE, you will need to load the INF driver files to get it to work. For this demonstration, the server I'm using has a set of Intel network cards. I've downloaded the latest driver package for this, extracted the INF files, and then I burned this to an ISO image, which I then mounted to the server using the iDRAC virtual media. This driver can also be made available to the server with a USB key, and it's also possible to find them in the file system of the operating system that you're trying to back up or recover. In any case, the idea is the same. The driver needs to be loaded to get the card to work. So I will do that by typing drv load, driver load, and then the path to the INF file. In this case, the ISO image that I have mounted returns or is seen in WinRE with the letter F. Within this F drive, I have a folder that happens to contain the driver file, the INF file, which in this case is named ixt68x64.inf. Just hit enter. You can also check the README file of the driver that you downloaded to ensure it's the one that applies to your network card. After a brief delay, you should see a successfully loaded message. And at this stage, if you run ipconfig again, you should see definitely more information, at least information on the adapters that were previously not being shown. Now, if a DHCP server is active on the network, the server will most likely obtain a dynamic IP address. If not, you can configure a static IP address by using the netshell tool. To do so, type netshell interface IPv4 and show config. Take a look at the name of the network adapter that you will be working with. In this case, I will be working with NIC1, and then you can use the up arrow key to type netshell interface IPv4, this time set address name equals, and then enter the name we obtained in the previous step. In this case, NIC1 space static to specify static IP address, and then enter the IP address that you'll be temporarily assigning to the server to get the data out. In this case, I'll be using 10.10.10.144. You can then enter the subnet mask, and if there's a gateway, you would enter it here. In my lab environment here, my source and destination servers belong to the same subnet, so I will now be using a gateway. Just hit enter, and you can use now the up arrow key again to run netshell interface IPv4 show config again. And if you take a look now, your NIC1 adapter should have the parameters that you just assigned. At this stage, you can ping the destination server to test connectivity. In my lab system here, I'm using 10.10.10.244. As the destination server, you can see here that I get a reply. Now we're ready to connect to the network share. To do so, just type net use and then a letter. In this case, I'll be using B for backup, but you can use any available drive letter. And then the UNC path of the shared folder to which you are going to be copying the files. In this case, it would be 10.10.10.244. I've temporarily created a folder named backup share and shared it with that same name. And then you have to specify a user to connect to that share. In this case, I also created a temporary user named backup user. Just it's a local user account. Just bear in mind that if this is a domain account that you'll be using, you would have to specify the domain here in the form of domain / and then the username. Since this is a local account, I'm just using backup user, and then I have to specify a password for this. Enter a super safe password for it, and hit enter. After a brief delay, you should see the command completed successfully message, and that's it. You are ready to use several tools to begin the copy operation. You can use the copy command, the xcopy, or the robocopy commands to accomplish this. In this case, I'll be using robocopy. We saw earlier that our database files reside in this folder, and we'll be copying this to our B drive, in which we have also created an SQL databases folder to host this files temporarily. I'll use the MIR switch to copy all the contents and hit enter. And that's it. You'll see that the copy operation begins. This is transferring over the network from the Windows recovery environment. After this copy is complete, you can make your data available on the destination server or just safely store it there until you've repaired or rebuilt the original. And this is how you can transfer data from an unbootable server to a network share using the Windows recovery environment. Thank you very much for watching.